You do make me wonder though if do you find that you're somebody who gets bored after you've like climbed the mountain? Like you got to the top and you're like, okay, on to the next mountain.
Great question. Yeah, when you said you're someone who, you've done lots of different sports um I kind of, it made me think of that. Man, am I just someone, do I just have like short attention span and I'm just like looking for the next challenge? But I don't think that's my story. I think really like how I see it, at least in the sports realm of things, was I wanted to be like the best soccer player. I wanted to be Mia Hamm and Christine Lilly and Brianna Scurry, like all together. I tried
Hmm.
out for like the Olympic development team. I didn't make it. I was like crushed. And then I kind of had this realization my sophomore year of high school. It's like, man, I don't think I'm ever going to be a really good soccer player. Like I'm good, but I'm not like, excellent. And had that, and I, rationally was like, okay, that's probably true. I think I can't fight it. And then I found running like my junior and senior year of college, and I ran like 5 minute mile, and I was like, okay, I'm like pretty good at this running, like this could be it, like let's go for it. And then the same thing with running, it didn't go very well in college. I never really felt like I got to the top of the mountain. And
Hmm.
for cycling, I guess I felt like right when I was sort of getting there, I always was I was just really scared by the kind of danger aspect, particularly of the cycling racing, being with the pack, and I had a bad crash, and so I think I sort of never felt like that was really the right fit, even though like physically for me it's my strongest sport, like it still is in triathlon. The cycling is my best event, but it really wasn't right for me. So I think, and then when I found triathlon, it was finally like, wow, okay. And I'm really good at this cycling thing. I can keep doing that. Running, I'm now such a better runner now that I don't run all the time. And
Hmm.
in the swimming, wow, the swimming, that became a little easier than I thought. And so it was like, wow, this is my right sport. And like, this is what I can be good at. So it was really more, rather than switching because I felt like I'd, done my business, it's more like, yeah, I had this really desire to not, I'm competitive, but it's more like I wanted to see the recipe for success, like for myself, and how I could sort of master a sport and get to
Hmm.
the highest level. And then I think I finally found it with triathlon. So I would think that, barring if I had the opportunity to keep training and racing, I don't think I would get bored with it. I think it yeah, there's so many ways to improve in the sport because it's so complex. So I think,
Hmm.
yeah, but we'll see.
You're right. So I'm kind of going back a little bit, thinking about kind of your training hours, although it does vary in this too. I'm curious why it seems like you focused more on like 70.3.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why you decided to go 70.3 instead of ITU, since you had that initial, had pretty good success, it sounds like, on the swim front, and that's pretty important ITU wise. Like, was there a big reason why you decided to go non-draft instead of draft, or?
Yeah, there were a couple reasons. So I definitely, of course, I think like many people who have initial success in the sport, they think, oh, go ITU. I know another purple patch girl who's quite a talent, Chelsea Sodaro, who I met this past winter at a training camp, who just switched. She did a season of ITU, and then now is going long course. And
Mhm.
we kind of discussed what her reasons were. And I think mine were, yeah, the swim definitely wasn't, yeah, is not strong enough by any means.
Mhm.
I think I was like a little diluted at first because I was having a pretty good upward progress that,
Right.
oh, I could get there. And then I think the more and more I learned about like how consistently fast these ITU girls swim, I think it really is prohibitive. I think there might be an exception or two to this rule, but by and large, girls who are competing in those World Cup races have either a college or a high school, or like at least some sort of summer club team swim background when they were
Hmm.
a kid. And I think you really can't replace that. It's one of those things that, if you learned how to move your body like that as a kid, it's really hard to play catch up. And there are exceptions, and there are people who become very good swimmers, but not enough to make those packs, which is essential. And then
Right.
for the bike ride for the ITU, it's really it's conversely like not essential. You can
Hmm.
be like an okay bike rider, and I think my strength wouldn't really wouldn't really help me very much in the ITU racing because of because of the drafting. I really couldn't um, make my the distinction compared with other riders.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing is that it's really hard to get into the ITU racing because it's spread out across the world and across this country. Even these like entry level Continental Cup races that you need to do to get points to go to the World Cup, they are in sort of in not very accessible, and there's
Hmm.
bunch of age groupers who are going to them, so it's not sort of as much of an event, and it's not as well organized, so there's a lot of it's a little less exciting, if you know what I mean, like
Hmm.
less of an event. And to contrast that with Ironman, where you have 2,000 to people who are competing on the same day, and they
Hmm.
put you up in a homestay, and the event's fun. So it seemed like there was a lot of things pointing me in the direction of the non-drafting races. And I would love to do more Olympic races. Honestly, I like that distance. I think it's nice to have like a 2-hour event. I love the
Hmm.
city, like the city races, Philadelphia Tri, New York City Tri, like DC Nations Tri. I thought those were awesome events. And unfortunately, they're either getting, I don't know if they're losing funding, or there's some sort of issue with putting them on because of the city, but they seem to be a dying breed, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, I kind of have a similar like I ended up going 70.3 just because I was also not as great a swimmer,
hmm
and trying to get that pro license. And I was like, okay, well maybe I'm gonna have success at 70.3, and still didn't quite make it. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's
kind of
important.
similar reasons. Yeah, so like at Eagle Man, I came out of the water like a half hour, which is okay.
Yeah,
It's decent, but it's not like even the pros at 70.3, they'll be coming out of the water 25 minutes or under for
yep,
that distance. So
yeah, yeah,
that's just how that goes sometimes.
yeah.
Um,
Even like my best race I had like a couple weeks ago in Peru, and I did 29 minutes for the swim and came out like 4.5 minutes behind the leader, and that's
mhm,
still a large deficit. And I almost made it up on the bike, almost
yeah.
got her, but that's it's somehow even on such a short amount of time they can make up such the good swimmers can just make up such a good chunk that's really
Mhm.
hard to chase back. So even in 70.3.
So I kind of want to go back. If you give a little bit of history on like the cycling crash and what happened there, I kind of have like a follow-up question there. So if you tell that story a little bit, just
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
viewers have
I
a
think it's
little history.
important to hear, because not enough people seem to talk about their how dangerous a sport cycling racing is. And I know like it is a beautiful sport. There's nothing more awesome to watch than the Tour de France. But I think when I entered the cycling community, it seemed to be just like this elephant in the room that was like this really big kept secret, that like people have really serious injuries that are like caused by racing. And
Hmm.
it's not like, yes, of course, there's the danger of training and cars and all that. And we have that in triathlon too. But that was something for me. I think, I don't know if I would have gotten as serious about the sport if I'd really been aware of like how frequently these like devastating, crashes can be. So yeah, happy to talk about it. So yeah, I was having a great season, doing a lot of races as cyclists do, like racing, 3 times a weekend, crazy stuff
Hmm.
like that, and really into it. And it was actually a local race where I had a bad crash in Central Park. It was I was in, of course, there's these preems that are located at like checkpoints along
Right.
the way, and there was a preem, so we sprinted for it. And then often a good place to get in a breakaway is right after the preem. You sort of counterattack. So
Hmm.
I had done that, did a counterattack after the preem. I think I got a gap behind me, and then one other girl who I knew was the other, what I thought was the strongest other girl in the race besides me, and looked back and looked like we'd both gotten away. So we got a gap from the group, which is how you sort of establish a breakaway.
Right.
So I take a hard pull in the front, and then I elbow her to come around me, and she can take a hard pull, and we'll establish this breakaway. And so she came in front of me, and then she kind of let up, and I wasn't sure. I think either she was looking behind her. When you kind of look behind yourself, you'll either swerve a little bit, or you maybe won't pedal as hard as you're
Right.
looking behind. Something like that happened. Anyway, we were going like, it wasn't no downhill or anything. We were going on a flat, probably 25, 30 miles an hour. And
Hmm.
I just, it wasn't even raining. It wasn't wet. It wasn't a pothole. It's just a bike race. And like, I was redlining. So was she. I hit her back wheel. And, I think we overlapped wheels like this a little bit. And
Hmm.
my wheel just, snapped at 90 degrees. On another day, I might have skidded and had some road rash and been fine. But of course, you only get lucky sometimes. And so I went down really hard. My bike kind of, because the wheel seemed to lock up. I just like got kind of thwacked to the ground, and I broke my pelvis in 5 places, and
Mm.
my sacrum and my pubic bone and my collarbone, and had some internal bleeding. And I think the coolest part was that I had the my number pinned on my jersey, of course, and then somehow in my rolling and tangling, one of the safety pins had come loose from the jersey and like impaled itself in my arm, like sticking like this. So I was like, guys, look! I'm like, it was like that Halloween trick where you have
Mhm.
a knife over your head. It's like, look at my arm, I have a safety pin growing. Anyway, so I was really lucky because none of it ended up being like lasting injuries. I didn't have
Right.
surgery, or like, the bleeding was controlled on its own and everything. But I did have to stay in the hospital a couple days, and it was scary. And I had to get like, pan scanned, as we say, medicine, a CT scan of your entire body to make sure there's, in a high speed trauma, you have to do that. And it just made me really like reconsider what I was gonna do with my sporting life. And I think I thought right after that I might not get on a bike again, but that didn't last very long.
Mhm.
I kind of came up with the fact that triathlon might be a good fit. If I wanted to keep biking, then I knew it was a lot safer. So
Yeah. So I'll kind of try to give the short version. I keep bringing up Eagle Man. I did this on purpose because I wanted to talk about your crash because I actually crashed Eagle Man. So in case you look me up, that was one of my only DNFs.
shoot.
So I was, having a really good day for me, coming across the like 25-mile mark at like an hour one, which matches like my best 40K ever.
Yeah.
And around like 26, 27, coming around a curve, a guy starts passing me on the inside of the curve and forces me out, and I just hit a patch of gravel or something, I don't know, and just went down
Oof.
and broke my collarbone. So I was not as bad off as you were.
Yep.
Um, but I know that, you know, through the whole thing and, having surgery, because it like my bone split down the center and then a piece broke off. So like it was a whole involved thing.
Yeah.
Again, you had it well, way worse.
Yeah. No, but still,
um,
big
but I
deal.
know like getting back on the bike, you know, especially I raced a couple, I guess it was early March, and it was windy out, and like I call it squirrely, but it's like that little bit of anxiety. Like, did you have any anxiety like post crash, like getting back on the bike, getting out?
Yeah, definitely did. And I think it's really common what you're talking about. Feel squirrely is a good word to describe it.
Mm,
You're like hyper aware, you're like on your brakes, and probably doing yourself a disservice, because what you really need to do is just
right,
relax, right?
right.
Um, but that's easier said than done. Um, so I think, time heals many wounds,
Hmm.
bodies and our minds. And I think, I did certainly am more tentative than even that crash was was July 21st, 2014, so 5 years ago. And I think I still am more cautious and conservative. Even like I think about the fact that, in race, I biked a 2:14 in Peru, which is my best time the other week.
Hmm.
And I still thought about multiple times in the race. I said, I could do this faster right now if I say, like that guy did to you, cut somebody on the inside of the turn to get around it a
Hmm.
little faster, or if I don't slow down, brake a little bit, or to get over this like lip in the road, or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And I make the conscious decision to say, hey, I know what I'm doing is resulting in a little bit of a time penalty, but it's the safer way. And I think you just have to think like that. It's just not worth it. And I think you know, some people may be able to determine that for themselves before having an experience like the crash. But I think I always just have that to go back to in the back of my mind. Like it's going to be like that if you even just one little small thing. All it takes is one corner or one piece of gravel you didn't see, and
Hmm.
it's like the line between you know, having a great race and staying upright and not it's so small. It can be like anything, if do you ever catch yourself having like gone over a little pothole and you like didn't see it and you're like, holy crap, like thank God I'm still, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
And those are the times you got lucky. And I don't know, riding bikes is one of the most fun things in the world, but it's also, you're living on the line. So I think it's a sort of a healthy um, caution that comes after having a crash like that. For the most part, I think, I'm sure you've gotten a little less squirrely since that first ride back.
Yeah, the I have Zip 808s, so like a little bit like the wind pushes on those wheels. I don't have the deep disc in the back, which would really push it around, but like some of it's just the difference between having the training wheels on and then having the aero wheels on, which do get more side push when you have that crosswind
Yeah.
and just getting knocked around a little bit. And this last winter was cold. I'm in the Midwest, so
Okay.
this last winter was cold enough. I didn't really get to get outside much,
Yeah.
mostly because it gets cold enough that my water bottles freeze, so I can't go out.
It's
It's,
fun.
it's not that I wouldn't, but physics doesn't play to my advantage. So then just sitting on the trainer all winter, you don't get those like micro movements in and all the stabilization and like just being used to adjusting for little pushes of wind here and there and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of that culmination of post crash and then not being able to be on the bike as much.
Yeah, yeah. I think that speaks to the importance of like getting out on your race setup, with your 808s,
Hmm.
like with whatever your race wheels are, and really riding in that and like riding it a couple times in race conditions. I think that's something that definitely can throw you on race day if you haven't done that. So something I've tried to be better at recently, even if it means like, oh, I'm getting my disc dirty or I'm riding it in a training ride and people think I'm like, a tool or something. You're like, you know what? This is worth it to go and test it out. So
Yeah, it's kind of like a down another rabbit hole. But like, have you seen like the F1 kids race? Do you know what I'm talking about?
no.
It's like part of the development pipeline. So it's like if you ever go to a race like Claremont, one of the late development races that also has an ITU attached to it.
Yep.
So they'll have F1, which is like kid. I'm sure I'll get this wrong, but it's something like kids like 10 to 15 with
Okay.
these tiny bikes. It's like these 10 to 12
Yeah.
year olds riding around, and they're just taking these corners like pros. I mean, their handling is just spectacular, and it's like no fear at all. And I always remember talking to my friend, watching these kids, and I'm like, they still have no fear because they haven't hit the pavement yet.
Yeah. That's how they haven't experienced that or their brains
Well, I
aren't
mean,
fully like
yeah,
alienated or something.
yeah. It's almost like this like taint. It's like it poisons your mind a little bit, and then you have to like go through this whole process of washing it out and like getting that confidence back and all that kind of stuff.
But not washing it out totally because
No, it's there's a little bit of stain always left.
yep, it's a little healthy.